So this was CGL1's Combat Against Injustice 16-person invitational a few days ago. Their grand finals with Kombat and SylverRye saw our first big showcasing a variation to Robocop at a tournament. I wanted to analyze that match a little bit. A link to their channel can be found in the description below. Let's just get into it. For this kind of matchup, it is kind of risky zoning against Fujin, especially with Fujin's low slide and airwalks that'll go under and over most of his projectiles. Robocop needs to space himself where Fujin has to guess if he's going to walk out in zone or walk in and do something else, ideally, because otherwise Fujin will know exactly what to be doing at that given circumstance. Even at closer distances, Arm's CC Cannon is still a pretty good projectile. It's only 18 frames in startup, which is relatively fast. Its travel time, relatively very fast, like nearly instant. You can whiff punish a lot with that projectile, actually.
Gets himself out, nice. Puts himself back in good position right now. Nice backdash, fantastic, right out of range.
Okay, gets a hit off down 1 into forward 2-1. Amplifies Arm CC Cannon for some distance. Now, Robocop is pretty stubby with a lot of his attacks, so down 4 and back 4 are actually pretty good long-reaching pokes that can catch your opponent off guard a lot of the time.
Into the dick punch.
I know, right? What the hell is that about?
Bro.
So right here, Kombat gets a hit and then goes for the strike throw mix-up here. Forward 3-2 is safe on block, unlike throw. So you should be using forward 3-2 more often and only throw to call out when the opponent tries blocking what they think will come a forward 3-2. Now this time, after the flamethrower, he goes for a grab. Notice Fujin doesn't even try taking the throw. It's just too risky to try it in this case. Robocop gets a crushing blow off a throw if Fujin fails an escape attempt from the last one. So a lot of the time, the opponent won't even try teching the throw and instead try ducking, which will make them vulnerable to that forward 3-2 or any other mid he has. Now, having a really fast mid for the strike throw mix-up is pretty good. Getting a flamethrower that restands to confirm off a hit with that mid during the strike throw mix-up to put them in another one is very good for Robocop.
Yeah, you called it 100%. He just needs one touch to make this work, but he's gonna get chipped out.
The flames, bro. Eat my mixtape.
Oh, wait.
Yo, friendship.
Oh, I know. This guy wins with Robocop, and he doesn't do the friendship?
Yo, we want to see the dance.
Freeze, dirtbag. Freeze, dirtbag. You stole my leche.
We want to see the dance. Sometimes they switch it up. But here's Robocop.
Catching the jump and knocking him out of the gunshots. Very good stuff.
So when Robocop gets a hit off down 1, it can jail into standing 1, standing 1-2, and standing 1-2-1. So those are all good stagger options, but I don't think you have the distance to try and shimmy or whiff off that stagger if they block it. What I think would be a better option if you wanted to try and whiff punish after a hit with down 1 is standing 4, because that will also jail and it'll offer enough push block to give you enough distance. Because if you try walking back after a stagger, Fujin can try and just throw a hit out, and it will catch Robocop every time. So Robocop's projectiles are really scary. They can just lock your opponent down into just blocking, and I think dashing up like what Kombat did here and just throwing him is a really good idea. Now you want to be ideally a little bit closer so you don't have to like dash way too many times to go for a throw. But if you can just scare your opponent stiff, you can absolutely call it out at a good distance, but just dashing in and throwing. So Kombat here is doing forward 2-1 a lot after a hit with down 1, which is a 12 frame startup move. It's 2 frames slower in startup than say forward 3-2, but with forward 2-1-2, it has a crushing blow on counter or punish. So when choosing between those two options, that's kind of the decision Kombat is making here.
Oh, he did standing one. Standing one actually looked like he was about to shoot the rocket from
With
his
punishing
wrist.
that slide is pretty hard.
Pretty
Robocop's best options are down 4, back 4, or back 3, but you have to walk back a little to make it work.
Away, but guess what? You're gonna eat another combo. Nice spacing right now from Combat. And here he goes, marches in. Nope, didn't want any of that. Down
It's
one.
risky ending your block string with arm CC cannon because you can crouch and block, and doing both of those will make it whiff anyway.
Pew, 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 pew.
Bro, this is
Zoning.
ridiculous.
Once again, it's really risky to be zoning against V2 Fujin because if he knows you're going to zone because you can't do anything else, he's just going to airwalk or slide over or under your projectiles.
Yeah,
One thing Kombat did here was a meaty flamethrower when Fujin was knocked down. I think that was probably a error in input. I don't think it's the best idea. Both amplified and unamplified flamethrower on block are punishable by Fujin, though albeit it's a little more difficult to punish at farther distances, but there's definitely a lot better you could be doing here.
some more zoning here. Combat killer.
That string Robocop just did, forward 3-2-2, is actually punishable. It's minus 10 on block, so that is definitely not a good stagger to be doing.
Bro, the uppercut. Nice. Doesn't finish the combo to get like a bit of a mix-up. Here we go. No meter burn. He saw it and moves right on in. Whoa,
One
nice
thing that I thought was
jump.
interesting happening here was that Kombat, he threw out his amplified shoulder CC cannon, but before it even went off, he just went in for a block string,
Oh my
and then it
goodness.
went off in the middle of that block string. I'm assuming that was to like check if Fujin was going to try and jump out. I think with time, we'll find way better setups with the shoulder CC cannon, or maybe we won't, and we'll just never use it again. But yeah, I think it was a good attempt at a setup here.
That was disgusting, dude. Did the shimmy with punish into fatal blow, and just like that, he's coming back. That was disgusting.
Yeah, for this dude to be in the loser side, down one game against the Robocop man, that's a statement. He's putting a statement out there. SylverRye said, "Listen, I got a lot of fight in me left, and you're not gonna take me out that easy."
Nah,
All right, buddy. My
none of
question,
that, pal.
man, is Combat Killer gonna stick with this?
Wow.
So after a down 1 hit, Kombat went for a forward 3-2 string. The reason why he then on block went for an amplified arm CC cannon is because 1, it pushes Fujin out by a lot, and 2, it gives you plus frames at any distance, even this close up. This close up doesn't give you enough plus frames to do too much pressure wise, but it can at least give you a chance to make some distance.
Back in the corner. Nice block. Here we go. No.
So that was actually a down 4 into low auto 9, which was a pretty good idea. He just messed up the input is all. If you ever see Robocop out in neutral just throwing a standing punch like that, it's probably a messed up input.
One thing about this Cloud Walker is like so much.
So with all these projectiles, Kombat is really trying to call something out. If Robocop thinks Fujin's going to try and jump or airwalk or just not duck, he will use arm CC cannon. And if he thinks Fujin will try and duck block a lot, like inch forward and duck block, you use like low auto 9 to just stop that movement and check it for a little bit. He amplifies low auto 9 here a lot because those extra shots will catch and hit Fujin if he thinks it's going to be unamplified and tries inching forward again. And if Fujin doesn't move and Robocop doesn't amplify, then that is another opportunity to just continue zoning Fujin out.
Meter burns it. Boom. Nice block. Wow. Down 2. Stuffed City. There it is. Air, traded.
We've seen it happen a couple of times, but whenever Robocop gets a knockdown on those projectiles, he, on their wake up, tries to use a shoulder CC cannon, which at that farther distance will give him plus frames. Now that was a pretty good whiff punish. He had to back up a couple of times just to be super duper safe, but it's an 18 frame startup, so it's a pretty fast projectile to whiff punish with.
Oh my goodness. The air parry. parry. I don't know what that was, if there was a miscommand right there, but he did the air parry before. But that could have been one combo confirmed into fatal blow, and it was hit.
He probably tried to like make a read
Once
on a
again, on
reverse.
block, ends his
Oh,
block
nice.
string with
Yeah,
ARM
the
CC
counter
Cannon
was good.
amplified. It's a good idea and it's a good call out, but I'm wondering if this is
Wow,
just
these
a
two.
matchup
Look at the right hook.
unfamiliarity
Where did
for
it go?
SylverRye.
I don't know, and literally Robocop is just hitting him with a couple 1-2s, 3-4.
Right?
So
And the
after that
right bar
amplified flamethrower
decimated. And now
restand,
he's just
Fujin
off.
tries a down two,
Trying to
which
move from
would have
Cyrax.
maybe punished
Bro, down
Oh
Robocop's
my
throw, depending on that
god!
timing,
You see that
but would have
explosion for the
absolutely
finisher?
lost if
Dude
Robocop
flagged up
tried
the
like a
throw.
forward three or
Here we
something.
go.
So that was a pretty funny call
Oof.
out there.
Oh my goodness. Dude, Fujin just got served. I don't think Fujin has an answer for that. Robocop hit him with the ill dance moves and getting served. And here we are, guys.
This kind of stuff is a big reason
This
why
is the final
Fujin
game.
can be
Fujin starting
challenging
out
to
strong
zone.
with mad
It's not
pressure, but
easy being
Robocop
outside
with
of that
impeccable
low slide
defense.
range. It
Here we
goes
go.
really
Now
far,
one
and the second hit
missing.
after that
And
slide
into the corner
is
he goes. Now
it's
Fujin's in
nearly
there.
full screen really how far it takes him.
Oh, he
When
didn't
you're
go for the
closer to
crushing blow.
Fujin
Tried
and try a
saving it.
projectile out of neutral, it
The
is
grab.
a risk in my opinion
Right
because
around
that
the corner,
slide
dude. This dude.
will
Oh,
go right
nice.
under the low auto 9 anyway.
Slide. Oh, slides into the first shot, but doesn't. Fortunately, gets hit by the second one. Oh, Skywalker. It's perfect. But here we go. Nice shimmy. Oh, that's it. He caught this. Wrong distance from the breath. Up in the air. Nice flawless block. Another one. Woo. My goodness. Look at this.
Wow, knocking him out of the air. That was pretty sick. You know,
Wow.
one confirm into fatal blow.
Like I said earlier, staggering with forward 2-1 and forward 2-1-2 can be really scary.
You know,
Fujin here
one
thought
confirm into
Robocop would
fatal
try
blow.
staggering forward 2-1 a second time
From each.
and tried
Oh
to
my
jab out of it or
god!
something and got a crushing blow for his
Oh,
troubles.
match point for
It's a
Kombat
very
Double
strong
shots.
stagger for that
That
very
fatal
reason.
blow or that crushing blow just changed the whole story. Wow, look at that though. That movement right now from Robocop. Slide. Nope. Robocop standing firm. No
So this
combo
is the
for him.
second time now
Switching
where
sides.
Robocop reacts to the airwalk with a down one, and I know that is not a good idea because he's already been whiff
Right.
punished a couple of times already throughout this
There we
set.
go.
I think what
Nice
he
and
needs to be
confirmed.
doing
Jump kick.
more
Oh,
is
new kick
maybe like a
blocks as
further
hook spike
reaching
finds its mark.
normal or poke or just back
Here we
up
go.
because clearly he's getting whiff punished a lot with that down
Wow,
one.
nice.
Freaky.
Phew. Oh, catches him in the air, dropping.
That was a pretty good call out. After blocking the amplified ARM CC cannon, Robocop dashed in, delayed himself a little bit, and then went in for the throw to
Nice
call
flawless
out.
block.
It's not just after restands or
Oh,
after getting
no,
hit
he
with a
had
down one or one of
the
those
push, but at
pokes
the
that
wrong
Fujin has
distance.
to
That's
worry
kind of
about a strike
scary.
throw mix-up.
With the
At
mind.
any given point in
Yeah,
neutral,
dude, this is so
when
down to the
Robocop is
wire.
in
He's
range for
at
a
that
throw
fatal
or a
blow
strike
territory
with that
again,
forward
where
three, it
one
is
touch
a
could literally end this whole
50-50
tournament.
which one he uses, and that I
I'm
think
so
is the
scared if he gets
scariest
that hit
part about
confirmed.
him.
Oh my god, that is gonna do it! That is gonna do it.
Wow, we got our winner.
We got our champion, man. Combat killer. Take it with Robocop.
Bro. And Robocop was too slow earlier, but right now,
Overall,
is
I
he going
think
to
this
serve
is
him with the
a
dance moves?
early and very
I hope
strong
so,
showing
because
of what you can do with Variation 2
let's
Robocop
get it,
competitively.
let's get it.
I just wanted to
Hey,
point some of that stuff out here in this match. This is Mormel, and this was Combat Against Injustice Grand
Moonwalk into
Finals
the
match
jackhammer
analysis of
and
Variation 2 Robocop.
pose. Robocop.
dude, at the end of the day,
Man.
I know nobody was expecting this.
Right? He showed up once, got served, and